Hello everyone and welcome back to IMO Reviews. Today we are discussing The Zone of Interest, directed by Johnathan Glazer and starring Christian Friedel and Sandra. The Zone of Interest follows the family of Rudolf Hoss, the commandant of Auschwitz, who lives in a pleasant home right next door to the camp. I've been very excited to see this movie. I've been looking for this as early as November. It's had a very scattered release across USA, England and Europe, but we've finally got round to it, and I can gladly say that Johnathan Glazer has absolutely knocked it out the park. Where do we begin with the positives here? I mean, the performances all round are absolutely outstanding. This is the second outing I've seen of Sandra, the first one being Anatomy of a Fall. It's been fantastic to compare the two roles. She's proven to me already that she really is a fantastic actress. And it must be said that the makeup and the costume on Christian Friedel is absolutely outstanding. He looks hauntingly like the real Rudolf Hoss and plays him fantastically well also. The film is superbly written with plenty of nuance and subtlety layered underneath throughout the entire runtime, and I thought the whole thing was very fair and an honest depiction of what it would have been like in this situation. It doesn't glamorise anything, but it doesn't hide from it either. But the film also understands that despite these heinous, unforgivable acts, they're humans too, like you or me, and they have friends, pets, feelings, and it's actually just an ideal, a dream that they've been sold and they've fallen for hook, line and sinker, with their warped justifications for these awful actions. And all of this misery is played so nonchalantly and easily, as if there's no real consequences to come of it. In fact, it's kind of the opposite. So much of it is celebrated for its ingenuity and competence in achieving the task at hand, which is very disturbing, but again, true, and again points out that idea that it's the idea and the dream that they've fallen for. It does make it easier for you to understand how they found themselves in this position and how they're all so willing to go along with it. The film really does explore a lot, and it juxtaposes it perfectly with these haunting backdrops of Auschwitz, and I thought it was handled superbly the whole way through. I really appreciate the fact that we never actually go inside of Auschwitz. They just let your imagination fill in these very haunting and disturbing blanks. It's so disturbing, in fact, at times you can almost taste the air. The two leads are not only fascinating characters in their own right, but their harsh and cold, quite militaristic relationship also holds a lot of weight and interesting dynamics that bleed over this blissfully complicit family. I'm not going to spoil it for anybody. I will tiptoe very carefully here. For those of you who've seen it, you'll know what I'm talking about. But this movie pulls a trick with its final few shots, and I just thought it was masterfully done. I always think it's a good sign that a movie is doing its job well when you say to yourself, perfect, now end here. And the film does. And I felt that with The Zone of Interest. We got to that point and my brain was saying, just stop now. You've said everything you need to say. You don't need to say anything else. And I'm so glad that it does, because it really is such a harrowing and precise gut punch. This may be a personal thing and even a bit of a side note, but when I was back at school, I studied history A-level. I think I may have mentioned this before. Failed miserably despite thoroughly enjoying the subject, but I'm just not good at writing essays. But I owe a lot of love and respect to our wonderful history teacher at the time, Mrs. Brooks. Shout out Mrs. Brooks, because she made sure to take our class to Auschwitz, to really take it in, to really experience it, and make what we're reading in the books a reality. And I know this is going to sound weird to say, but it is one of the best experiences I've ever had. But I mean that in the sense that there's nothing else like it. It's unforgivingly memorable. It's hauntingly silent. It's devastatingly huge. The air hangs thick and heavy. It's almost as if even the weather knows that hell on earth took place here. And this film just brought it all flooding back to me and put me right back in those rooms with all of those haunting silences, all of those creeping chills down my spine, all of those feelings that flooded me back then just came rushing over me like a tidal wave. And I don't mean to sound dramatic, but my hands were trembling come the closing shots of this movie. I can't fault this. This was really bloody something, Johnathan Glazer. You've outdone yourself, sir. I've always liked him as a director, but I'm happy to say that this is his magnum opus, at least thus far. He's weaved a stunning yet bleak and oppressively clinical piece of art here that's honest, fair, respectable and subtle. And if you haven't guessed already, I'm absolutely going to give The Zone of Interest a 10 out of 10. I also have to mention the sound design. It's so cleverly weaved in the film and does so much of the heavy lifting as the backdrops of these scenes wreak havoc on your imagination. This is really a devastating piece of work. It really exhausted me, but I mean that as a real positive. It's meant to exhaust you. It's meant to take it out of you with its subject matter, and it does so in such an elegant, respectful, and yet gutting manner. I should mention that the film is actually only a 12A, so please don't go into this being worried that there's going to be very excessive, harrowing scenes of blood and gore and bodies and such. It really isn't. It just lets those images flood your imagination without showing them directly to you, which in itself struck up some fantastic conversations between myself and Mrs. IMO on the drive home, who was also really floored and impressed by this. We compared it to Schindler's List, and both obviously tackling the same subject matter, they just do it very differently, where Schindler's List can be quite abrasive and unforgiving and shoving it right in your face at every turn it takes and absolutely gutting you and making you cry like a baby. The Zone of Interest haunts you with it. Rather than shove it in your face, it's like a ghost in the room that you're aware of and yet no one else is. Haunting really is the word, because it just lets it linger in the background and plague any chance of happiness in a seemingly upbeat and joyous scene. And the ultimate conclusion that we came to is that both work very effectively. Thank you for watching this review. Please be sure to hit that like button and hit the subscribe button if you haven't already, and please do hit the comment section as well. Have you seen The Zone of Interest? What did you think about it? Let me know in the comment section down below. And of course, if you haven't had enough of this crazy ginger, well, you can always click on these suggested videos right here and get yourself lost in an IMO wormhole. But if not, take care, and I look forward to seeing you on the next review.